You showing up would just make us all look bad. That's what Robert actually said when I asked if we were inviting the relatives for Mary's birthday this year, like we always had. Apparently, they were worried I'd ruin the image they wanted to present in front of my sister's new boyfriend. After that call, I didn't argue. I didn't even respond. Instead, I went straight to my finance app and quietly canceled every single automatic payment I'd been covering for them over the past 2 years. A month later, reality hit them hard. They finally realized just how much I had been doing. But by then, the damage was already done. I wasn't interested in hearing a single apology. That was the moment I chose to finally live life on my terms. Stick with me, and you might just see pieces of yourself in my story. Hey, I'm Ethan. I'm in my early 30s, and I live in a quiet little town about 40 minutes outside of Portland. My mornings are simple. I brew a fresh cup of coffee, flip on the weather, and head out to work at my office, just under 10 miles from my place. I co-founded a small tech firm focused on renewable energy, and it's something I'm proud of. But to be honest, most people, even my own family, don't really understand what I do. They still think I spend my days turning wrenches or fixing up machines. I've never corrected them. I don't really see the point. Every now and then, someone will ask about my family, about my parents or my sister, Ashley. I usually just give a small smile and say, "We haven't talked in a while." That's all I offer. Not because I'm keeping some dark secret, but because I just don't feel like rehashing the whole thing anymore. It's been 2 years now. No calls, no messages, no holiday visits, no birthday greetings, just silence. Like someone took scissors to the line that once connected us, and no one ever thought to tie it back together. I used to believe, truly believe, that family meant everything. But then, 2 years ago, right before Mom's birthday, that belief shattered. I remember it clearly. About 3 weeks ahead of Mom's birthday, I had already booked my flight and arranged some time off from work. My plan was simple. Go home early, spend a few days helping out, just like always. Nothing fancy, just doing my part. I decided to give them a heads up. So I called Mary. But Robert picked up after just a couple rings. "Hey, I'm planning to come home a couple days early," I said, casual as ever. "Let me know if there's anything you want me to bring or help with." At first, he just muttered something vague. Sure. But then he hesitated. And when he finally said more, there was something off in his tone. Like he was trying to cushion a blow. "Ethan, maybe it's better if you don't come home this year." At that point, I assumed he was just worried about my workload. Maybe trying to save me the trip. "It's all good, Robert," I replied, still holding my coffee. "I've got everything covered. No big deal." There was a longer pause this time. And then he spoke again, firmer, colder. "Ashley's bringing her boyfriend this year. He's a manager. Well-spoken. Respectable. And your job? Well, it's hard to explain in front of people like him. It might be best if you just sat this one out." That hit like a punch to the chest. I felt the heat rise up my neck and into my face, and without thinking, I gripped my coffee mug tight. "What the hell are you saying?" I shot back, my voice cracking with disbelief. "Are you seriously saying that to me?" He didn't backtrack, didn't apologize, didn't even flinch. He said it straight, sharp as a blade. "You showing up would just bring shame to the whole family. And if you do decide to come anyway, don't call me your father." And then he hung up. Just like that. I set the phone down, my hand shaking slightly, damp with sweat. The room around me froze. No background noise. No distractions. Just me standing there in silence, staring at nothing, feeling like the world had shifted beneath me. His words kept playing in my head. Clear, relentless. "You'd embarrass us. Don't call me your father." For a second, I wondered if I'd misunderstood him. But no. Every word had been precise. Deliberate. Cold. There was no mistake. No room for hope. No walking it back. I clenched my jaw, my throat tightening like I was swallowing a rock. And then, like a floodgate bursting open, the memories rushed in. I had been the one quietly covering their bills, electricity, water, internet, for over 2 years. Month after month. No complaints. Not a single word of thanks. Not even a mention. And now they were calling me the embarrassment? Still trembling, I picked up my phone again, this time with a numb, calculated calm. I opened my finance app and scrolled through the transaction history. I needed to see it all laid out. Every payment. Every dime I'd spent on them. Not for them. For me. Like clockwork, every month, the same 3, electricity, water, internet. Never missed a single one. All set to autopay, all coming straight from my account. About $400 a month. 2. Like clockwork, for 2 straight years. For the past 2 years, like clockwork, the payments went out every month. I scrolled all the way down through my finance app until I hit the bottom of the list. Total amount? Just under $10,000. I stared at that number for a while. Not because I was shocked, but because something inside me just stilled. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't even anger anymore. Just a kind of hollow quietness. Nearly 10 grand. And now they were calling me the family disgrace. As I looked at that endless list of transactions, something surfaced. A question I'd never really asked myself in my early 30s. Had Ashley ever done anything even close to this for our parents? It wasn't bitterness. I wasn't looking for praise or recognition. It was just, if I was the one they believed brought shame to the family, then what exactly were they using to measure that? I had quietly taken care of nearly $10,000 worth of their bills. Never once brought it up. Never asked for anything in return. Never even said it out loud. And Ashley? Did she ever once ask if Mary or Robert needed help? Did she ever sacrifice even a little? Or was she just showing up, dressed to the nines, batting her lashes and leaving behind a polished impression, while clinging to the arm of her picture-perfect boyfriend? It wasn't about keeping score. It was about finally seeing things clearly. In our family, fairness had never been part of the deal. I'd been pushed to the sidelines for as long as I could remember. Even in family photos, I was usually the one barely visible, stuck at the edge of the frame, half turned from the camera. Nobody ever told me to step aside. I just always did. Every big family event? It was Ashley's show. Her birthdays. Her graduations. Her heartbreaks. There was always something orbiting around her. People rushed in with comfort and praise like it was instinct. As for me, I honestly can't remember the last time someone asked me if I was okay. Ashley's 2 years older, but the difference was never about age. She was the golden one. The one they pinned all their hopes on. She was the name our parents bragged about when relatives came by. And me? If I was mentioned at all, it was a quick afterthought. Ethan? Oh, he's fine. Something with computers, I think. I used to tell myself, if I just worked hard enough, stayed out of trouble, quietly handled whatever needed handling, then maybe, they'd finally notice me. But they didn't. The thing is, when you've been invisible for so long, nobody notices when you're gone. I started paying their bills, electricity, water, internet, almost 2 years ago. It began with a call from Mary. That day, she was venting how prices were rising, how this month's bills were higher than usual, how their retirement income wasn't enough. Then, with that gentle, hesitant tone, she said, if you could help out a bit, it'd really mean a lot. I told her sure. At the time, I thought I'd cover a couple months, just until they got their footing again. But every month after that looked exactly the same. No one said a word about stopping. No plan. No end in sight. Every now and then, I'd ask, is Ashley helping at all, Mary? And she'd always sidestep it. Sometimes. Just help us this month, sweetheart. Your sister will pitch in next time. Other times. Ashley's helping with your dad's medical stuff. That's not easy either. I heard those lines so often. I could recite them before she said a word. And still, I nodded and let it go. Because deep down, I knew the truth. And I sent the money anyway. Month after month. Roughly $400. Steady. Quiet. No complaints. No reminders. No acknowledgement. It wasn't that I didn't care. It's that I genuinely believed it was the right thing to do. I kept hoping if I stayed responsible, stayed supportive, they'd eventually see me. But now, after everything they've said, and everything they haven't, they still look at me and call me the shame of the family. Eventually, when the initial shock wore off and the apartment settled into its usual stillness, I sank into the couch, still holding my phone. My hands weren't trembling anymore. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even hurt. There was just one clear thought that settled in my chest. That's enough. So I reopened my finance app. Went straight to the autopay section. All those recurring payments for electricity, water, internet. I canceled them one by one. No second guessing. No dramatics. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about sending a message. It was about protecting the one thing I still had left. My self-respect. The only thing they hadn't already taken from me. 7 days passed. The first message came from Mary. Same soft voice as always. No mention of what happened. No hint of an apology. Just this. We got a notice that the internet bill is due. Could you cover it? I looked at the message, just stared for a moment. Then I set the phone down. No response. Not because I wanted to be cruel, but because, after everything, the only thing she could think to say was another request. 3. They didn't want me there until the lights went out. Pay the internet bill. No. Hey, are you okay? Not even as simple, can we talk? So I kept my silence. And in that moment, the silence said everything I no longer needed to explain. 2 weeks later, Robert tried to call. The phone rang a few times, then stopped. I didn't answer. A few minutes later, he left a voicemail. His voice carried that same sharp edge, impatient, blunt, just like always. The power company called. The bill's overdue. What's going on? Still no concern. Not a single word about what he'd said to me on that call. The one where I told him I was planning to come home for Mary's birthday. I listened to the message, then turned the screen off and laid the phone face down on the table. And just like that, I stayed silent. Right through Mom's birthday. About 3 weeks before the celebration, the party went on without me. Everything exactly how it always had been. Mary's favorite roast chicken, the same store-bought cake, a small circle of relatives at the dining table. All of it planned to perfection. Except for one detail. I wasn't there. That afternoon, right around 4 p.m., I was sitting alone in my living room with a cup of coffee that had long since gone cold. My phone buzzed. A call from my mom. I stared at her name on the screen, then gently set the phone back down. I didn't answer. I didn't even hesitate. Not long after, Robert called. Then Ashley. 3 missed calls in under 10 minutes. I let each one go to voicemail. There was no urge to pick up. No curiosity. No guilt. I just sat there, leaned back in my chair, eyes drifting toward the hallway window, fogged up from the cold creeping in, like early winter tapping at the glass. 10 minutes later, the messages started coming. The first one was from Mary. Ethan, the power's out. The house is dark. Please take care of the bill. I read it in complete stillness. No frustration. No surprise. Just this quiet, hollow ache settling in my chest. That's what happens when you've been the one holding everything up for years. And suddenly, you're not there anymore. Then came Robert's text. No water. We can't cook. Handle it now. Followed by Ashley. The internet's down. People are arriving. Fix this. It's urgent. I glanced at the time. 5:12 p.m. And I remembered perfectly. I had canceled every one of those payments exactly 3 weeks ago. The same night Robert told me that if I still showed up, I shouldn't call him my father anymore. And now, in the middle of the party they didn't want me at, everything started falling apart. Lights, water, internet, gone. Right when they needed it most. I didn't text. I didn't call. I felt no need to explain or justify. I just sat there, turning the cool coffee cup in my hands. Eyes unfocused, staring through the misted glass as if trying to see past everything. Because deep down, I already knew. They weren't reaching out because they missed me. They were reaching out because no one else was left to carry the weight. Around 6 that evening, the phone started buzzing again. This time, nonstop. But it wasn't Mary, or Robert, or Ashley. Now it was the relatives. The ones who only show up on holidays, but somehow always feel entitled to judge. The text came like a wave. One accused me of being disrespectful. Another wrote, "You embarrassed your mother in front of everyone." And one message hit especially hard. "Your sister was right. People like you shouldn't ruin a happy occasion." I read each one slowly, not because their words didn't sting, but because I had stopped explaining myself to people who only ever listened to the loudest voice in the room, and never the truth. I was about to set the phone down when it buzzed again. A name popped up that made me pause. Aunt Claire, the only person in the family who ever seemed to see me. Really see me. Someone who still made an effort to reach out in ways that mattered. She was calling through that old video chat app, the one only she and I still used. I hesitated a second, then picked up on the second ring. Her face appeared, softly blurred by the warm kitchen light behind her. That kitchen used to feel like home. I knew every crack in the wall, every creaky cabinet. But tonight, it looked like a stranger's house. In the background, I could hear forks clinking, awkward laughter, bits of small talk. She looked at me through the screen, her expression gentle, but worried. "You're not going to pay it, are you, Ethan?" Her tone wasn't accusing, just quiet, like she genuinely wanted to understand. I met her gaze, and when I finally spoke, the words came slow and heavy. like I was pulling them from someplace I'd buried long ago. You know what, Auntie? I said quietly. It was Robert who told me not to come. He said if I showed up, I shouldn't call him my father anymore. She didn't respond right away. Her eyes shifted, scanning the room behind her. And that's when things got loud. I heard Mary's voice cut through the background. Tell him I'm ashamed of him. Of all days today. Then Robert's voice, sharp and dismissive. Oh, come on. It's not that big a deal. It's just a couple of bills. The night they found out who I really was. What kind of man gets this petty over some bills? Another voice chimed in, probably Uncle Mike. Poor Ashley, having to deal with a brother like that. I heard footsteps approaching. Then, suddenly, Ashley appeared behind Aunt Claire, arms folded tight, her face twisted with annoyance. He answered the call, she scoffed. Mary's been crying all day. And him? Not even a blink. No shame whatsoever. Still, I said nothing. I just watched them through the screen and held on to my silence, like it was the only armor I had left. Just as I moved to end the call, another face slid into view. Someone younger. Clean haircut. Sharp dark suit. He looked into the camera, a little hesitant, and offered me a small, uneasy smile. Hey, boss, he said, voice low, unsure, like the words didn't quite belong in the moment. I froze. My grip on the phone tightened without me even noticing. That word, boss, hung in the air like a sudden draft in a sealed room. I hadn't seen it coming. Not here. Not on the very night I was deemed too embarrassing to attend. I looked at him. Then it clicked. The face. The voice. Of course. He was one of our newer hires, transferred from our Southeast office. We'd exchanged a few emails. I'd read 2 of his quarterly reports. But I never connected the dots. He was Ashley's boyfriend. The one my family had been bending over backward to impress. The kitchen behind Aunt Claire froze. She glanced nervously over her shoulder. The room shifted, voices softened, tension seeped in. A whisper from somewhere in the background. Wait, what did he just call Ethan? Then another, slightly louder. Boss? Does that mean? Ethan's his boss. Murmurs overlapped, one rolling into the next, louder, more confused. But me? I just sat there and watched. No reaction. No explanation. Just stillness, waiting to see what would unfold. The young man straightened up. He glanced toward the room, then raised his voice for all to hear. In case anyone didn't know, he said, clear and steady. I work at Greencore Innovations. Mr. Ethan is one of the company's co-founders. His words cut through the noise like glass breaking in a cathedral. The silverware clinking stopped. The chatter dissolved. Silence. Not awkward, just stunned. I didn't speak. I simply gave the faintest nod. A confirmation, not a declaration. Then he turned back to the screen, still wide-eyed. And I said, calm, smooth, like I'd been rehearsing it for years. Hope your big introduction goes just fine. And with that, I ended the call. That night, for the first time in what felt like forever, I slept straight through. No tossing. No racing thoughts. No sudden wake-ups with old questions echoing in my head. Just stillness. Not from revenge. Not from pride. Just from finally being seen. The next morning, before sunlight filled the room, I reached for my phone to check emails. A few work notes. Some finance updates. And then a name I didn't immediately recognize, Mason Clark. I tapped it open. The first line hit square in the chest. I'm sorry. I had no idea you were Ashley's brother. He went on. I've always respected you at the company. I raised an eyebrow, leaned back into the pillows, and kept reading. Mason wrote that he had genuinely been caught off guard when he realized the connection. And then, no fluff, no softening, he added. I didn't expect her to act the way she did. I'll be ending things. Thank you for not putting me on the spot in front of everyone. I set the phone on my chest, closed my eyes, and breathed in the stillness. After a few minutes, I opened the reply box and started typing. No emotion. No drama. Just honesty. Mason, that's your choice to make. I don't expect anyone to change course just to stay on my good side. Think it through before you do anything. And just so you know, I don't bring personal issues into work. I hit send. No hesitation. No heaviness. That was enough. When certain things become clear, there's no need to add more. Just after 10 a.m., I was finishing a meeting with my department leads when my phone buzzed again. The name on the screen, Ashley. I stared at it, then calmly tapped decline. Not out of bitterness. Not to make a statement. Just because I was tired. Tired of apologies that only ever came after everything had already fallen apart. 5 minutes later, she sent a text. I'm sorry. I didn't expect Mason to walk away like that. You're his boss. If you just talk to him, I'm sure he'd listen. Please ask him to come back to me. I walked to the hallway window, leaned against the cold glass, phone still in hand. I read the message once. Then again. Then I typed. No lecture. No anger. Just truth. Mason didn't leave because of what I said. He left because of how you live. 5. When the apology comes with a price tag. How you treat people. How quick you are to dismiss what you don't understand. And how you always assume that saying things gently is enough to make others follow your lead. That's what I typed out. And hit send. Then I slipped the phone back into my pocket and turned my attention to my desk. But not a full minute later, another message buzzed through. I know. I messed up. I mean it this time. I'll change. Please, just this once, believe me. I didn't respond. I read it. Let it sit there on the screen for a few seconds. But I felt nothing. Not because I stopped caring, but because I finally understood something. Sometimes, the real distance between people isn't in what's said. It's in when it's said. I quietly deleted the message. No archive. No draft. Just gone. And then I turned back to the life that was still moving forward. About a week later, on a quiet Friday afternoon, I stepped into the house after tinkering in the garage and froze on the porch. There they were, Mary and Robert, standing at my front door, each holding a small suitcase, worn out and silent, probably straight off the flight. I didn't ask why they'd come. If they flew out here, it wasn't to bring cookies or talk about the weather. So I opened the door. No tension, no fake warmth, just a choice. Let's not do this with wind in our faces. We sat in the living room. The tea on the table was still warm, steam curling into the space between us. Robert spoke first. He apologized. Calm voice. Almost even. Then Mary jumped in, supporting him. Said they'd been thinking. Maybe things got out of hand. Maybe they'd taken it all too far. I didn't interrupt. I just listened. Because I was waiting. Waiting to see what kind of apology this was. Was it an ending? Or the start of something with strings attached? Sure enough, like clockwork, Robert shifted gears. We're family, Ethan, he said. And family's supposed to help each other. We raised you, sent you to school. Everything you've got now. It started with us, right? I looked at him. Didn't flinch. Just sat up a bit straighter. Then Mary, soft-voiced, completely reasonable in tone. If you could send us, maybe, $2,000 a month. Just a little help. It's not much for someone like you. I looked at them. The same parents who once told me not to come to a family celebration. Because I'd embarrass them. And now? Now they were in my living room, trying to put a price tag on their apology. Not just a vague favor. An exact figure. $2,000 a month. Because I was their son. Because my success, in their eyes, wasn't something I built. It was something I owed. I let out a laugh. Quiet. No edge. The kind of laugh that slips out when someone tells you a story that doesn't add up. They waited for a response. Maybe they thought I'd fold. Maybe they hoped guilt would do the work. But I wasn't mad. I was past mad. I leaned back slightly. Kept my voice calm. What about Ashley? I asked. How much is she contributing each month? The room froze. Air thickened, like it didn't know where to go. Robert glanced at Mary. She answered, voice lower now. Well, her job situation is still kind of shaky. And, you know, the whole breakup with Mason's been hard. I nodded. Of course. Same old rhythm. Different song. Words wrapped in concern. But beneath them, the same message. Ashley's off the hook. Again. I looked them both in the eye. If she agrees to give you $2,000 a month, I said, I'll match it. No more. No less. Silence. They stared at me like they weren't sure if I was serious. So I continued. Still calm. No shift in tone. Or, if you want me to take on the full amount, I'll need it in writing. A formal agreement. Legal. Something that confirms that once you both pass, the house becomes mine. Fully. Then I leaned back. No pressure. No anger. No over-explaining. Just waited. To see what they'd say next. 6. When respect has reached its limit. For the first time ever. I was the one drawing the line. Setting terms for something they'd always treated as my default responsibility. My role in the family. The moment I finished speaking, the air turned thick. Heavy. Weighted with silence. Then, like something inside him snapped, Robert shot up from his seat. He slammed his hand against the wooden table, hard enough to knock over a teacup. The hot liquid spilled, dripping down to the floor. And then came the eruption. Booming, raw, shaking with rage. You're giving conditions to your own parents. We took care of you for over 20 years. And now you want to nickel and dime us like we're strangers? What kind of person does that to family? He was yelling so loud. I wouldn't be surprised if the whole neighborhood heard. Me? I didn't move. Didn't flinch. Just sat there, hands resting calmly on the armrests, eyes locked on his. Not angry. Not cold. Just done. And when he finally ran out of steam, I stood up, slowly. Then, in a low and steady voice sharp enough to slice through the noise, I said, I think it's time you both left. No drama. No fire. Just a simple sentence. From someone who'd reached the edge of what respect alone could carry. Neither of them said a word. Only the sound of suitcases sliding across the floor. And the soft click of the front door closing behind them. Funny how a door can shut so gently, yet leave something so loud inside you. That was the last time I saw them. Right here. In my home. It's been 2 years since then. I didn't block their numbers. Didn't change my contact info. Didn't burn any bridges. I just stopped calling. Stopped texting. Stopped chasing. And waited. Waited to see if they'd still see me as part of the family. When I wasn't wrapped in duty. When I wasn't fixing things or footing bills. But in all that time, not once did they reach out. No check-ins. No birthdays. Not even a simple, how are you holding up? There was a time I thought they'd change. That maybe, eventually, they'd come around. But I've learned something since then. People don't change unless they believe they've done something wrong. And some folks never think they have. So here I am. Still living. Still working. Still showing up for my own life. But I don't live as a one-man lifeline anymore. I don't offer my heart or my wallet in the name of guilt or tradition. And if there's one truth I hold close now, it's this. Family isn't a free pass to demand your energy and call it love. Real family sees you, the person, not the paycheck, not the safety net, not the emergency fallback plan when things fall apart. Before I close this chapter, I want to ask something. Was I wrong? Was I wrong to walk away? To say no to giving my parents $2,000 a month? Even now? Even as they grow older? Yes, they raised me. Yes, they were there in the early years. But after being made to feel like a stranger in my own life, again and again, I chose something different. I chose to break the cycle. So tell me, was that cold? Or was it the first time I truly chose to love myself? I want to hear from you, whether you agree with me or see it differently. If this story stirred something in you, leave a comment below. And if you connected with it, hit that subscribe button to support the channel. There are still so many stories waiting to be told and heard. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for sticking around to the very end.